First week of January 2017, we had a freeze in Birmingham, that shut the city down. So it was really cold and his lips started chapping. After a couple of days, I noticed that his lips weren't healing as we put chapstick on them. The morning of the 9th, we woke up, he was really pale. His lips were still chapped and bleeding, and he was very lethargic. Before we left the house, he said he had to use the restroom, and he started walking towards the bathroom and got really dizzy and fell and ended up vomiting. So I immediately called the pediatrician and they said, we're gonna need you to go to Children's Hospital. So we got to Children's and did the tests and ended up admitting us, and that started our 9-month whirlwind of crazy, cancer life. He was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia called acute promyelocytic leukemia. The standard treatment of care in the US for that is the standard AML treatment. You essentially spend 6 to 8 months of your life in the hospital.
There's a very specific type of leukemia called acute promyelocytic leukemia, or APL. That's a subtype of AML. And historically, this has been a very difficult to treat type of leukemia that's required specialized treatments. And also patients have had a lot of complications of the disease itself, where patients will have, unfortunately, bleeding and clotting events. We call that coagulopathy is the big word. And so we've done a lot of work to investigate how can we support the patients better, provide better treatments, and essentially have better cure rates for these patients.
So Dr. Cutney, who's at Children's Hospital, is one of the nation's specialists on acute promyelocytic leukemia, which is Asher's, and he was running a clinical trial that takes away the standard AML treatment and just uses the arsenic and atra. It was really a no-brainer. It's like, oh, I don't have to live in the hospital for 6 months, and he doesn't have to, go through that horrific, treatment. Sure, let's do it.
So with our historical treatment approaches, unfortunately, we were only able to cure about 50% of patients. And that was with a really intensive chemotherapy regimen where patients were in the hospital for months at a time and have many complications, a lot of infections because we were really attacking the immune system. That therapy also had a long duration for almost 2 years of therapy. With the new therapy that we pioneered and investigated through the Children's Oncology Group and spearheaded here at Children's of Alabama, this was a much shorter therapy, only 8 months of therapy, and almost all of it was done as an outpatient, meaning that the children didn't have to stay in the hospital receiving their treatments. They were able to be at home, sleeping in their own bed, and going to school. But what we saw is that as the children received them, they would feel essentially very normal. They had very few side effects. So when we looked at what was reported, sort of their experience going through the chemotherapy, there was very few, compared to chemotherapy, there's very few infections, there's very few organ toxicities, or other problems that we sometimes see with our traditional treatments.
The way it worked out is we ended up spending 4 weeks at a time and 5 days a week for 4 weeks at the Children's Hospital clinic, getting this arsenic infusion. And then we had 2 weeks at home, or 4 weeks at home. And that cycled until September, after his last treatment, got his bone marrow biopsy, and it showed that he was in full molecular remission.
So the patient experience is so much better, and we're not as worried about sort of the long-term side effects of some of those treatments, because these children, as we cure them, we look forward to decades of a long life and a healthy life, and we want to make sure that what we do in curing them of their cancer doesn't set them up to have long-term other health problems related to the chemotherapy. So it's very exciting, the research that we've been able to undertake and the clinical trials that we've been involved in.
Children's was amazing. The amount of patience that they have and love for these kids. The doctors, especially Dr. Cutney and Dr. Payne, they were extremely communicative, always kept me updated, did a very good job of breaking down terminology and language and description and things like that to help both of us understand it better. I don't think words are possible to say how much that the hospital and the doctors and the nurses meant to us.